And WWE had Bret Hart as a guest on The Bump this past week to talk about his great run of matches at the Summerslam. I've been calling Bret Mr. SummerSlam now for years. To me, John Cena is Mr. Royal Rumble. Shawn Michaels, obviously Mr. WrestleMania. Bret Hart is Mr. SummerSlam. You could make the argument for Brock Lesnar, but I would go with Bret Hart. And Randy Orton is Mr. Survivor Series. That covers all the big events. Bret had some great matches, classic matches at SummerSlam over the years. The Hart Foundation match against the Brainbusters, non-title, in '89 to open the show. That was really good. The 2 out of 3 falls match with Demolition for the belt in 1990 is one of my, always been one of my favorite SummerSlam matches. SummerSlam 91 against Mr. Perfect at Madison Square Garden is a classic. Not even their best match, but that's a classic. Wembley Stadium in 92 against the British Bulldog. Obviously, that's a classic. Some people say it's one of the best matches in company history. The 2 matches that he had in 93, which was like a giant angle, but in this angle, there were 2 matches that night. First against Doink, who was a damn good wrestler. Don't let the gimmick fool you. Lawler was feigning an injury, so Bret had to wrestle his court jester first. They had a match. Then Lawler revealed he wasn't injured after all. And then we got Bret against Lawler. Those matches were really good in 93. So those 2 matches were actually very good and probably don't get the credit they deserve. The cage match with Owen in 94 is one of my favorite matches ever. You know, the match with Isaac Yankem in 95 is not one of my favorites, but it's also not a bad match. I actually watched it probably sometime in the last few months. I was watching SummerSlam 95 because I wanted to see the ladder match again between Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. So I ended up watching the whole thing, and the match actually is not bad. I mean, it's a crappy disqualification finish, but it's not a terrible match. 96 he missed altogether, and then the match with The Undertaker in 97. Match was good, but it was the finish of that match. It's one of the most memorable finishes they've ever done. That was a great finish. Shawn Michaels is the referee for the match. You have the tension between him and Shawn the whole time. And then he spits in Shawn's face, and Shawn just, he hauls back and just clobbers The Undertaker in the head with a chair by accident. And he has no choice but to count the 3 for Bret Hart to make him the champion, because if he doesn't call it right down the middle, the stipulation said that Shawn Michaels would never again be allowed to wrestle in the United States. And since WWE is a United States-based company, that would effectively end his career. So he had no choice but to count the 3. The heat for that finish was off the charts. Off the charts. And of course, the feud with the Undertaker, it led into one between him and Shawn, because after what happened there is Shawn became heel. Shawn went heel because of that finish. Undertaker feuded with him. They went on to have a few, I'd say, kind of memorable matches together. Right? Just a little bit. Just a little memorable. But the reason I bring all of this up, and the best part of this, was as they're talking about this, right? They're talking about the cage match with Owen in 94. And I think there's a new timeline actually dropping today, if I'm not mistaken, I think on the WWE Network. Timeline is this new series they just premiered on the network a few weeks ago. The first one is covering the Daniel Bryan-Miz feud. I haven't watched it yet. I've heard it was very good. I think this next timeline is on the Bret-Owen sibling rivalry. And it's either going up later this week or it may already be up now. I have to actually check that out when I'm done here. But in any event, he's talking about the match. And he says that that was not the original plan that he had in mind for the match with him and Owen at SummerSlam. For them to have that big blow-off match coming off their WrestleMania match, that was not the plan. The cage match was not the plan. He says for years, he tried to get Vince McMahon to let him do a ladder match in WWE. There had never been a ladder match in the company before. He had them in Stampede back in the 80s. And he wanted badly to do one in WWE. And finally, this was in 1992, Vince said, okay, show me. Demonstrate for me what a ladder match is. What would a ladder match look like? Because back then, he couldn't just whip out his iPad or bring up the network and show Vince one of the old Stampede shows, so he had to physically go ahead and demonstrate for him in front of a crowd what this match would be, and let's see how the crowd reacts to it, and let's see. And Bret said he could have picked anybody he wanted to wrestle against. He chose Shawn Michaels. It's on the Smack 'em Whack 'em Coliseum video, the same one that has Bret's first title win over Ric Flair in '92. This was in July of 1992. They had a ladder match, did not air on TV. They went out there. It was pretty good. It wasn't like a great ladder match that you're going to remember for the rest of your life, but it was a good match. Bret won. He retained the Intercontinental title. And after that, that was just to show Vince the concept. So then after that, nothing really came of it right away. Nothing happened. Fast forward, 1994, WrestleMania 10, Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon have a ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. And Bret minced no words here in this interview. He said Shawn and Razor flat out stole his idea. He said it was flat out theft. And he was always very disappointed because it was, in his words, it was his match. Now, for the record, it could still have been, maybe it was Bret's idea. You know, it was his dad's territory back in Stampede. Maybe he suggested it. Maybe he came up with the concept. I don't know. But Bret was not involved in the first ladder match in Stampede Wrestling. But he says they stole his match. He only picked Shawn to help demonstrate it for Vince. And then 2 years later, he turned around and he stole his idea. So now we know where all the heat stems from. It doesn't go back to WrestleMania 12. You could trace the heat all the way back to 1994. This is all because he stole the friggin' ladder match away from Bret. Bret's been bitter about it ever since. He's kept these feelings buried deep within. Now it all makes sense. But he wanted the Summerslam match with Owen in Chicago to be a ladder match. That was his original plan. They would blow things off in a ladder match. And I can't hate because the cage match is fantastic. And all the family drama and the family members, trying to get in at the end. It was great. But now I really want to know what a Bret Hart Owen Hart ladder match would have looked like. I think that would have been absolutely friggin' great. We'll never know. But it's not like we ended up getting a bad match out of it. I don't think the hosts, like Caleb Braxton was there and some of the other the guys from .com, I don't think they knew how to take it as he was telling this story. It was like you could tell they were caught off guard by how candid he was. But one of the great things about Grumpy Bret is that he doesn't care. That's one of the things I like. Yes, he does. He does sometimes come off as very grumpy and bitter about certain things, but you know what? He doesn't care. He just speaks his mind. There's no filter. He doesn't worry about getting heat or anything like that. What is there to worry about? He's not wrestling anymore. He's in retirement. He's got, a beautiful wife. He's got a beautiful home and a family. He's enjoying his retirement. He's already in the Hall of Fame. He's already accomplished everything he wanted to accomplish in his career and in his life. He doesn't care. He's not worried about pissing people off. He's not worried about upsetting people. He still goes out there and talks shit about Triple H. 4 out of 10. He doesn't care. You just get to that age, I guess, where you just don't give a damn. And that is where Bret Hart is in his life.